Hi everyone, here's the book episode once again, and today's video is going to be a double feature in which I'm going to suggest you two classic books that you should definitely read because they engage perfectly in the issues of their time, because they show how you can use literature to talk about complicated ethical and philosophical questions, but mostly because they're wonderfully entertaining and incredibly hilarious. Both of these books are very short, both of these books are not hard readings at all, and I've heard about many people who really don't like to read classics. I think that books like these two are perfect gateway drugs into the world of classic literature. The first one I'm going to talk about is Candide by a dude called Voltaire, who was quite a big guy in the world of the French Illuminism. Candide is in many ways a philosophical novel, which doesn't sound good at all. It sounds boring, but it's not. It's a very short, adventurous novel that spans different continents, which features lots of adventure, lots of hilarious situations, and that in general revolves around a single philosophical concept, which is the Leibnizian, the idea brought forth by Leibniz that we are living in the best of all possible worlds. Long story short, because why would God make us live in any other world, really? And this idea might sound a bit stupid nowadays, but at the time it wasn't at all. And if Voltaire wasn't convinced by it, by this idea that we're living in the best of possible worlds, it was also because of specific historical reasons. Candide was written in the aftermath of the earthquake of Lisbon of 1755, don't trust me on dates, which pretty much destroyed the city, which was one of the most advanced, most beautiful, biggest city in the Iberic Peninsula. And people back then looked at this natural event and started wondering, well, why in the world would, I don't know, God make such bad things happen, such terrible, disastrous things happen? Nowadays that is still a difficult question, but I think that both atheists and religious people recognize that it's a complicated one. Back then the issue was a bit simpler. People were actually wondering such things, and again, I understand it's difficult to understand, but the concept of Providence, the idea that God actually looks after his people, that he looks after the people of Europe, Christians in general, was still very, very strong at the time. The Defrauded, which is one of the best novels of the 19th century, and which came out one full century after the earthquake of Lisbon, is still very, very steeped in this idea that, well, if you act well, if you're a good person, God will eventually provide. Back then, though, the combination of the revolutionary idea of French Illuminism and of this historical event of the earthquake of Lisbon was in many ways a groundbreaking event. What, too soon? Voltaire reacted to all that, and in Candide, which is in the first place an amazing novel, you can read it without knowing anything of the historical context and still find it incredible. He reacted to all that and he showed the absurdity of such a belief. And Candide might look like a strange book coming from a big philosopher like Voltaire, both because it's filled with adventure really and thrills, and also because at the end of the day, spoiler alert, small spoiler alert, once everything is over and some of the characters still try to reflect on this best possible world, on all these philosophical ideas, what another, apparently dumber, a bit cleverer actually character says is, well, we should focus on our work, really. I might be oversimplifying some, but at the end of the day, the big philosophical point coming out of Candide is, well, yes, this is not the worst possible world, life doesn't suck that much, it's definitely not the best one possible, but still, what we should do is, let's focus on our work, let's carry on with our lives, let's not focus too much on philosophy and all that. At the end of the day, it's counterproductive. Which nowadays too seems a bit pointless, but especially if you're the kind of guy who likes to read a lot, especially classics, especially heavy literature, that's a valuable lesson indeed. Never lose contact with the real and concrete things of the world. Which is the same lesson that comes out from another classic, quite more famous, which is Gullivers Travels, which is another satirical work in which the author Jonathan Swift responds to changes in his own world. Gullivers Travels has been seen as a children's book, as an adventure book, as a satirical book. In general, some people consider it a reaction against Robinson Crusoe by Defoe, generally considered the first novel in the history. Not really, but whatever, surely not the first good one. I'm not a huge fan of Robinson Crusoe, and in any way, Gulliver's Travel is a reaction against that notion you find in Robinson Crusoe that if you are a good rational man, if you are an able, a skilled, white European man, you can do whatever you want, you can survive whatever comes your way, you can survive on an island all alone, more or less. Gulliver's Travels is the exact opposite. The main character is a very compelling, very quite smart and witty person, but at the same time all sorts of mad shit happens to him, all kinds of trouble come his way, and at the end of the day what his troubles do is one by one start eroding his belief in his own powers and in the good nature of the world in general. Gulliver's Travels in a way is also a reaction against utopian writings like Thomas More's Utopia, another sucky novel, and especially the part with the civilization where no one dies. That's a very strong reaction against that notion of the utopian society where everything is good, mostly because on Earth, considering the way the world goes, there's no such thing as an utopia. It's impossible to achieve, really. And the strongest among Gulliver's Travels is definitely the last one, in the country of the talking horses and of the Yahoos. It is indeed the most important among Gulliver's journeys, even though it's not famous as the ones with the giants and the dwarves, because in that journey Gulliver realizes the weakness and the basic baseness and lowness of human beings, and that's an experience that leaves him broken. For a children's book, an adventure novel, that seems like a lot, like heavy stuff, but make no mistake, Gulliver's Travels is an adventure book. It's amazing fun and awesomely entertaining, and it shows how heavy books do not have to be boring or too heavy at all, even when they are distractingly heavy, like in this case. So these are my takes on two extremely important, seminal, influential novels. What do you think of them? I know I've only touched marginally most of the themes in both. What do you think is the value of both of these books? Would you compare them? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching once again, guys. I will see you in the next one. Bye, guys.